All right, hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to do a really simple mermaid on a black canvas. So before you get started, you just want to get your canvas, whichever size you're using. I'm using always like an 8x10. Get it painted black, let it dry all the way. Then you're going to go ahead and jump in with me and start this process of painting on top of the black canvas. I'm going to use a medium-ish to smallish round brush. So if you're using a larger canvas, just use a larger round brush so that you're not struggling to get those brush strokes in there. And we are going to be using the primary colors plus black and white. Just make sure you have a rag and a water cup and all that good stuff, and let's get started. So we're going to start in the middle. I always like to find the middle of the canvas first. And we're going to start by mixing the color of the mermaid skin. So you can adjust this to customize whatever you want. I'm using just the yellow and the red to make a light, like kind of just an orange kind of color. And then I'm going to go ahead and add a lot of white to that. Now, if the skin if it feels too yellow, add a little more red. If it feels too pink, add a little more yellow. If it feels too orange, add more white. And this is just going to create a peach sort of skin tone. Now, if you want it to go darker, you're going to use less white and add black until you get it to where you want it to be. You could still use black, you just use less. Just use less white if you want it darker. So I might add a little bit of black just to change the shade and make it a little bit less orangey and a little bit more earthy. So I added just a tiny bit of black and then a lot of white and a little bit of yellow and red. So again, if you want to make a different shade, like more of a brown color, and I'm going to show that because I will use the brown to make different shades on the mermaid's body. So we want to know that with these same colors, I'm just using red and yellow. And then if I add a little bit of black to that, not white, so I'm not adding white, a little bit at a time, that's going to give you brown. And you can have a little bit of white in it, but it's just less. So you want it to show up as darker, not lighter. So there's a darker shade, more black, less white, but you're still using red and yellow to create those undertones. And then again, if you want it a little darker, you're just adding more and more black to make it darker and less white. If you want it super, super dark, you just basically don't use any white and just add that to the red and yellow. And that'll give you an even darker color. So you're going to play around with those shades. Basically just red and yellow, white and black. Different ratios is going to create different browns and peaches and things like that. Everything in between. So clean your brush if you got any color you didn't want on there. And then you're going to find your color that you want, or the base color, which is like the predominant color that you want your mermaid to be. So whatever that is for you. I'm using this color where I have mostly red and yellow, a tiny bit of black, and a lot of white for a light peach skin tone. And then I'm getting it on that medium brush. Let's find the middle of the canvas and make a dot. And that's where the bottom of the waist is going to go. So from there, all I'm going to do is make a little V shape, or almost like a U shape, but you want it really narrow at the center dot. And then it's going to get a little wider as you go up, like that. And then you're going to paint from the top of that. I'm going to paint thicker to thinner, coming straight down like that. So maybe this is like an arm. And you can always make the waist a little thicker too. I'm going to make the waist a little thicker. And then I'm going to have another arm. Start at the top of the V, push harder at first, thicker, and then it's going to get thinner. And you're just going a little bit below the waist here on this side. So see, I'm going to make it go a little longer. And then you can have a little line pulling over to the right, and that could be like a hand. This is super abstract too. Don't take it too serious. And then I'm just going to block that in with some color. Imagine that these are going to be the shoulders right here. These are the arms, and then this is the back of the body, but a lot of it's going to get covered with the hair. So our hair is going to get real wild, and we're making like long mermaid hair. So just keep in mind that like the shoulders, you might see it a little bit, but this whole top back center of the back is going to get covered. And then you're going to want to paint another layer. So we're going to imagine that this left arm is maybe bent in front of the waist. So we're not pulling this one all the way down, and then they're like she's leaning on her right hand. Okay. And again, we're going to add more layers to that. So once you have the base coat in, you can add that darker shade. So just make a shade that looks darker than whatever shade you're using. And I'm going to put a center to the back. So just draw a little line right in the middle of your back shape. And you also want to put a little line in between the arm and the side of the body. So you're basically painting a shadow on the sides of the body. Maybe even the bottom right here. It's almost like an outline. And then on the inside of the arm. So see how we've made, like, now there's some shadows there. Then you're going to clean the brush. And then you can make a lighter shade. So this is my base color. This is the first shade I used. I'm just going to add more white to that to make a lighter shade. And then I want to put that like down the middle of the back and the outsides of the arms. And you can still leave your first layer showing a bit. And then you can always go back to your first shade. So if you need to go back to more of that peachy color with less white to get more of a medium color again, you can go back and forth a little bit and play. You want to be able to see at least 3 shades. So you have your medium shade, then you have a darker shade, and then you have a lighter shade. So as long as you're hitting that 3 shade number, you're good. And using that ultra light or even pure white for some highlights is going to be good. And then we can always paint more on that, but I'm going to let it go for now. So let's clean our brush. And then we're going to build out the mermaid tail, which I'm going to paint green, but you can paint it any, like you can do blue, whatever. I'm going to do yellow and blue to make my green. And you're going to just clean your brush between your colors. So if you're done, when you're done with your skin color, come into your mermaid tail color, whatever it is. It could be blue. You could just use blue and white. You could do purple. It's so fun to customize. Make a custom one. And then I'm going to put white in it too, because whenever I paint on a black canvas, I like white mixed in. It allows it to pop a little more on top of the canvas. And then you're going to go to the bottom right here and just paint a line right at the bottom of the waist. And notice how it goes a little bit across the arm. And then I'm going to pull from the center of that shape. I'm going to pull over to the left. And then I'm going to pull down. I'm wiggling. I'm just going like over to the left and then pull down. And then make it a little more narrow as you come down to the right. And then you're going to make it wider at the top. You want to make sure it kind of comes out. Making it thicker up here. I'm thickening up the brush, the whole tail area over here. And same here, I'm going to make this a little thicker. And then I just want it to get skinnier as it comes down. So I'm not making it thicker at the tip. Okay, so we have it moving like this. And if you want to change your shade, like maybe I'll make it a little different. I'm gonna add a little more blue. And then I'm gonna make my little tail fin thing, flipper. And all I'm gonna do is go up on the tip of the tail a little bit. And then you're gonna pull out from there and just wiggle and maybe twirl up. Going like that. And then again, this is more of a thicker to thinner kind of thing. It's gonna be thicker as it touches the tip of the tail here. And then it's gonna be thinner as you come to the tip of the fin. And I'm gonna make this one smaller. It's the same kind of thing. Let it be kind of wiggly because they're, you know, kind of a water vibe thing. And then I'm going to color it in, but leave a little gap between the center of the tail and the fin for some contrast. Then you're just coloring that shape in. Okay, so now we have like the tail, the base, the back. Next, we're going to do the hair. So let's clean the brush. Nice and clean and dry. And then let's do our I'm gonna start with like a pink, and then we can layer more to make some different shades. But I want like a fiery red, so I'm doing mostly red, just a touch of yellow, and a touch of white. And then you're going to the top here. You want to go above the head. So if you're right in the neck, where the neck is, we're covering this all with hair. You want to go up from that space, you know, reasonably high to where their head would be. And then right in the center, pull from the center of the spine, right in that dark shadow that we did in the middle of the back. So you're pulling a line up from that space. That's where the top of the head's going to be. So your little rainbow top of the head shape is going to come right hovering above there. I'm going to notice how it's not standing out that much. I'm going to add more white. Sometimes you just have to start out with a lighter shade, even if you want the end result to look darker, because it's going to create a barrier between the black and the color that you want to look more vibrant. So you got to have a lot of white at first. And then I'm going to pull down, and this is just going to wiggle. You can wiggle and curl some hair out, and it's just going to fall on the back of the body. Make little swooshes. And this is a good opportunity to, you know, cover over any part of the shoulders or whatever that you didn't like or that you feel like got a little weird. You can just cover it over. Notice I'm painting over a lot of the back. And this is so fun to customize, so you can do any kind of color hair you want. It's so much funner when you're really just doing the things that you like. So if you like blue hair, do blue hair, you know? So now that I have all these base colors, I'm gonna put some more abstract brush strokes in the background just to create some fun movement and energy. So let's clean our brush. I'm still just using that medium, smallish, round brush. This is so simple. And I'm gonna do blue and white. So blue and white is gonna be a fun color because it's gonna represent like water. And I wanna put it under her hand right here. So I'm gonna make a zigzag, just pull down. And I'm gonna go to the left of that same space. So just imagine the hand is like right there. And then I'm gonna go to the same space on the canvas on the other side and pull another little wiggly space there. And you can kind of drag it into the bottom a little bit more if you'd like. And I can even have some little like splash marks coming up, which is basically just push and then release, push and then release. And you can do as many of those as you want, like push and then release. So it should be a little thicker and then almost like a droplet. And don't do too much because we're going to add bubbles. So you don't want to put this like too much and then you will run out of space to do bubbles. And we can always add more. And you can always dip your brush in the pure white and do a second coat so that you have a couple shades of blue. You can even add some darker shades. So if you want to get some of the darker shades of blue in there. So play around with different shades of blue. And then you want to also use this in the tail. So maybe I want to add some of this blue in the tail to see how I can make that little design on top of the green. And then you can do it for the little, maybe mermaid scales. So you can just do little dabs or little smiley faces to make it look like the mermaid has that kind of fish scaly tail. And then you can do some darker shades. So if you add more blue, less white, and go at it again. I want to see a few different colors. And I can take some of that more blue, less white into the tail. And you can take that onto the top part here and just do little vertical lines. And you can even do a little separation between the little top waist of the tail and the main part of the tail. And I'm going to do more of this with a darker color too. So we're just doing our first layer. This is where everything's still going to look kind of flat, and that's okay. It's going to come to life though. You got to be patient and trust the process. So see how we have just all these fun colors. It's so cute. And then clean your brush again. We want this to dry, so keep your brush ready for later. And we're gonna do some bubbles. Now I'm gonna use the cap of a paint tube. You can use lots of different things, and I'm gonna use pure white. So spread some white out somewhere where you have like a place to dip it in. I'm just using my finger because I just love to get my hands dirty. And then I'm gonna take the cap and then just stamp it in the white. So you basically just go to the white and just stamp. Now you have it on the rim. And then you're gonna go in and like, maybe I want a bubble here. Just poke it or stamp it and put one here. And I'm gonna do another one there. And notice how these ones are kind of big. So I have like 3 big ones. And then I wanna do some that are smaller. So you wanna find another size cap or anything to do a second size. And you can do even 3 sizes. So however many you want to do. So other things you can use are like a straw, a marker cap, get creative. I'm gonna do this with the straw. I'm gonna do both. I'm gonna do 3 different sizes. So I did my biggest size already with my paint cap. Now I'm gonna do some medium with this thing. Just stamping. And then let's do some even smaller ones with the straw. And this is gonna just be random depending on what you're using. So don't stress about it looking a certain way. They're all gonna look a little different every day. You can even go with a whole nother size and do like an even bigger paint cap and do some really big bubbles. But I'm just gonna keep it with the smaller ones. So once you have those bubbles in, I would just take a clean dry brush, and what you can do is kind of spread some of that paint out a little bit and drag it towards the center of the bubble around the edges of the inside of the little stamp that we did. So notice how I have some paint piled up, and then you can just spread it in towards the middle. And then that's gonna You don't want it to be thick though, so I'm not adding paint. I'm just using a clean, dry brush to spread it. Should look faint. But you want to do that on all of them. Just go to the side and just, you don't have to do it all through the whole center. I want to leave part of the bubble black. And if your brush is if it's picking up too much paint, just wipe it off. And then if your bubbles are too thick, sometimes I see people do this technique and their bubbles are like really thick. You can always use your black to tone them down. I wouldn't do it yet while the paint is wet still, but you can do that at any time. So while that's going, the rest of your painting should be getting a little bit drier. And what you can do is you can do some more little details with white. So for example, I can take the tip of the brush with pure white on it and then make some dots. Just making little random dots everywhere. And you can make some of your bubbles sparkle too. So if I wanted one bubble to sparkle, I can put a dot on the edge of this bubble. And then you're just going to take your brush and pull like an X coming out of the dot. And then you can also pull like a T coming out of the dot, just to make all these lines coming out and make it a little sparkle. Those can stress people out. So, you know, if you're that person that's going to get stressed out by that, we're going to do a lot of sparkles on here. I'm going to do it like on their tail and at wherever I really want to put it. So, but you don't have to. So I'm just showing you how you can do it. It does add some fun stuff to look at in the painting, and it looks cute. You can even do some of those little splash marks with white, just like we did with the blue. And again, one of the things I love about painting on a black canvas is that you can paint over stuff. So if you don't like the way something turned out, you get to paint over it. Now I'm going to start the process of adding some different shades to the tail. So I want to create a lighter shade of green by adding more yellow and white to the base color, which is the first shade we used. So make sure it's lighter, more yellow and white. And then I want to go to the top of the tail here. I'm just going to add some of that towards the top. And I'm going to do that towards the top of the tail. And then this part towards the top. So just find the tops of your shapes. And then you're adding essentially a highlight to those top parts. And then you want to do the opposite, which is create a shadow. So once you have your highlight green color, make a darker shade of green. So all you're doing there is using more blue and just a little bit of yellow. And if you want it to be even darker, you can pull in just a tiny bit of black. So I'm going to do a little bit of black in my blue, and with a little bit of yellow, make a dark, dark green. Nice dark green. And that's going to go on the bottom side of things. So go to the underside of your tail. You can even do just some little streaks inside. And then go to the bottom side like here. So I want to go to the bottom side of this part of the tail. I'm going to go under this part. So see how now just having those different shades really starts to pull it forward and make it look a little more three-dimensional. So wherever you feel like you need some shadows, so I'm going to do a little bit here. You can even add some little dabs in the tail like we did for the scaly kind of look with that darker green. Maybe I want to put some little vertical lines on the top of the tail, the waist of the tail. Again, you can paint like more lines. Sky's the limit here. Then I'm going to clean the brush. I'm going to let it dry a little bit. We're still going to do more on the tail, but I want to do the hair now. So the hair, I want it to be more reddish. So I'm going to do more red with a touch of yellow. And maybe just a little bit of white, not as much as the first time because I was just trying to get it to stand out against the black. But now that it's standing out pretty good, I can go in and add some layers with this color. Or again, any color you want. Doesn't have to be what I'm doing. Just using a coral red. It's like red with a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white. And those streaks are just layering right on top of our first layer. And then you want to change your shade a little bit. So maybe I add more red and do another little layer and let some of those underlayers show so that you see different shades of the color. So again, I can add some more white back in to make a lighter shade. And I can do almost like highlights with the lighter pink, but leave the darker pink showing still. So you just want to get some different shades of whatever color you're using. And different shades are so easy. All you do is pretty much add more white or add whatever darker shade you're using to make it lighter or darker. And then for the bubbles, I do want to use some of that pink color. So that pink highlight color that you're using, you can take it into the bubble and just make a little dash of pink inside the bubbles. So just go in there and go, just make a dash, following the movement of the circle. That's like a little parentheses. Just dab it in. So it's just white and red, making that pink, and I put it inside all the bubbles. Then I'm still cleaning the brush, and then I can go in and add some green inside the bubbles. So maybe I go to that light green or just a medium green, whatever shade of green you like. I'm going to do kind of a lighter highlight green, and I'm going to put that inside the bubble. And then you can clean your brush again and do it with the blue. So all the colors that we have in the painting, I'm actually putting inside the bubbles too, which is kind of fun. And then maybe I want to take some more of that light blue in the tail, maybe adding some more white, and then just dab. I'm just doing little dabs, like little smiley faces across, little taps across the tail. More white is going to be it's going to stand out more. So I suggest getting a decent amount of white in there. Going to the top, adding more highlights, more little lines. And then you can even use pure white. Go to the top of the tail, the top parts. And I usually like to do a broken line with my really highlight, like bright highlight. And then you can always, if your paint gets a little too thick or cluttered, just clean your brush. And then you can do more of those little sparkles. So we're just kind of waiting for the hair to dry. I'm going to layer a little bit more on there. I'm going to do some sparkles on the tail, making, again, it's like a little X shape and then a T shape. Do a couple spots, start with a dot. So you're starting with just a little dot. And then I'm just barely pulling. Push a little harder at first and then release pressure as you pull out. Let it be kind of crazy. Let some of them be kind of big too. Like it gives it a little more drama. But if that stresses you out or you're not liking the result, it's optional. I'm going to put a little sparkle at the top of the tail right here too. And don't forget about like little dots floating in the sky. Just really abstract. Super abstract. And then in the hair, I want to take white dots like right around the back of the head, like almost like maybe they're wearing a little princess band, like one of those little headbands that goes around the forehead, and then just do a little row of dots along the back. But you can do any kind of little hairstyle or decoration. Doesn't have to be this. Little dots all connected. Maybe it's like a little pearl headband. Super cute. Then to clean your brush, maybe I go in for some pure red. And I can do some little shading under the headband so it's a little darker in some spots. And you can do shading with some purple too. So if I have mostly red with just a little bit of blue, that was a lot of blue. I always say a little bit and then I put a lot. But there we go. I added a lot more red back in. You have a lot of red and a little bit of blue. Excuse me. It's going to be like more of a burgundy. And then that'll show up on here. I'm just going under the headband. There's a little bit of a shadow, and you can even add some little streaks for contrast because you don't want it to just be all one shade or all one color, especially towards the undersides, like the flips of the hair. You can add some shading. You really want to get as many different shades as you can. And then you can use like more blue and get a darker shade of purple. This is a good shadow color too. So maybe I want to do darker shadows on the tail. So like if I go under this tail part right here, I can make a little bit of darker lines like under the waistband of the tail. Or I can even reestablish some dark lines around the tip of the tail. You really want there to be some definition there. And you can even add some like darker colors in the tail itself. So again, I added more blue so it's not as bright and it's a little darker. And then you can even add some in the tail. So wherever there is light, there must also be darkness. So deep. And even in the little scales, you can do some little dabs. Wherever you want to see some dark shadows come in. Again, I'm doing little streaks in the hair, a little bit under the headband, but not too much. It's all really subtle, little amounts, building up. And at this stage, you might notice like, oh, I want maybe the head to be a bigger or whatever. I might go in with like a little bit more of that coral pink. Make the crown of the head just a little bigger. You can always add a little more white for more highlights. And they're all going to turn out different every time. So you can come in with the same idea. And every time you paint it, it's going to be a little different. And that's actually what I love about painting. You really can't do it the same way twice. I mean, you can get close, but I don't know. It's always different, it seems. And then one last little tip. You can always layer more. Again, so if I wanted to paint more on the body, like maybe I wanted to make that skin color a little bit more thick or whatever, if maybe you had some of that black showing through and you don't like it, you can always make that skin color again and put more layers and put more shading or more highlights. So everything is layerable. What I love about painting. So whether that's whichever part. And then also you can use the black to paint over anything that got too crazy. So usually I'll take the black at the end of a black canvas painting like this, and I'll be like, okay, this dot didn't kind of changed into not a dot, so I'll just paint over some of it to make it look like a dot again. I smudged my green right here, so I'll paint over that. You don't even want to get too perfectionisty here, but you can reshape anything. You can give more, you can just use it as a shadow color, giving more definition or whatever. And then also some of those bubbles might have got really thick, the little edges, so you can always paint black over part of the outline of the bubble to make it look more transparent. So if it's too thick, sometimes it doesn't have that transparency, which is what you want in a bubble. You want the bubble to look transparent. So these lines, you don't want them to be too thick and heavy. You even want some parts of them to be completely blocked out. So you can always come in and, like, this one got really thick, so I'm just gonna thin it out, paint some black in there. And it makes it look a little more subtle and transparent. So the bubble thing is so fun to mess with. You can also add more colors inside your bubbles. You know, play around until it looks fun and you like it. I usually like to just thin things out, check my colors, paint over things that got a little too weird, whether it's the dot or, you know, whatever. That one was too much. This one didn't even turn out, so I'm just going to make it go away. So you have all your different little bubble shapes. You have just a lot of variety there. You can even make her arm a little thinner here. So carve into anything you need to, make adjustments, and then you're gonna let it go. So I'm just gonna let it go. This is, I mean, again, I can take it further. I can add more shades of green. I can add more shades to the hair. You know, it can go on and on forever, but you have to go, you know, as long as you have at least 3 shades in each section, you like the way it looks, don't nitpick it. Just embrace what has happened today, love and accept it, and then let it go. And that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let it go. And I wanna thank you for watching today. Hopefully you like and subscribe and share to help spread the joy of painting. I love to paint, so I hope you enjoyed painting along, and I hope to paint with you again soon, and have a beautiful rest of your day. Bye.